why I am doing this, as I express to you the epidemic of depression in our culture today. Today, more than 1 out of every 20 Americans, adults, are treated for depression during their lifetime. Worldwide, there are 121 million people who are suffering from depression as I speak. The experience of depression is simply this, that depression is a human problem. A fact of life that shouldn't surprise us when we realize that we are imperfect people. We live with other imperfect people in an imperfect world. And when we open our Bibles, we discover a long line of people who struggled with depression. Here from Psalm 32 is an illustration. He says, "When I kept silent, my bones grew old through my groaning all the day long. For day and night your hand was heavy upon me. My vitality was turned into the drought of summer." People in the Bible were depressed. I remember telling you that in the Bible, over 200 people are said to have been afraid, and that it wasn't just the peripheral people, but it's the main people. The expression of depression. None are more poignant than the one recorded for us in Job chapter 3. And our biblical character today is none other than Job himself. Job stands naked before his God. Anything or anyone who he might have counted on for help or encouragement has been taken from him. If you read the first 2 chapters, it's hard to comprehend what it must have been like. A servant would come and tell him of one tragedy, and before that servant could leave, another servant would come and tell him of something else that he had lost. And one after another, Job was reduced until there was nothing left. His wealth was gone. His health was gone. His children were gone. His wife has abandoned him. His misery is indescribable. His outlook is hopeless. And while he rejects the advice of Satan and his wife to curse God and die, Job is despairing of his life. The terrible disasters that are described in the first 2 chapters are over. Job has managed to weather them with his piety intact. But now the battle has shifted from the outside of his life to the inside of his life.
Heaviness, depression is not an emotion, it's a spirit. God has not given us a spirit of fear. Fear is not an emotion, it's a spirit. If you treat fear like it's your emotion, you'll never overcome fear. Fear is a demon spirit that attacks our emotions. And the only way to overcome fear is to address it as an outside entity and take authority over it. Demon of fear, you will not. See, fear comes to make us make a wrong decision that God will not honor. God only honors faith. He doesn't honor fear. Depression comes to swallow us up in a blanket of self and negativity. It's a spirit. God has given us a garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Listen to me. This is a garment. I had to put it on. When the Bible calls something a garment or tells us to put it on, it means we have to make that choice every day. We don't wake up with it. Did you know the Bible says put on humility? Because our sin nature is a prideful sin nature. If I'm going to walk as a humble person, I've got to make that decision every day. Listen to me. God is enthroned on the praises of his people. And Satan and God cannot coexist. When you're depressed, don't sit around thinking about your problems in yourself. Praise your God. Put on the garment of praise, and when you put on the garment of praise, the spirit of heaviness is going to leave your life. David said, I have set the Lord always before me, therefore my heart is glad. Why am I glad? Because I'm just sitting here thinking about him. What happens when I'm not thinking about him? I get depressed. I get discouraged. I get overwhelmed. My glory rejoices, and it just means I'm encouraged. It encourages me to think about how great my God is. The last thing that it says, he says, my flesh will rest in hope. Versus anxiety. Versus anxiety. I'm telling you, we're living in difficult days, but our God is God over everything. These may be the end times, but they're his times. The devil is not in control. The Antichrist is not in control. Our God is in control. In everything we come against, he is greater than that thing. Somebody needs to say
about about the God that I serve, that even when I'm wrong, he doesn't ignore my cries, that even when I don't do things right, and even when I find myself in messed up situations, I can still cry out to the Lord. Some of you are in here because you did everything the right way and you never had any issues. Some of us are in here because when we got in the middle of the fight and we recognized that we had made a world that we could not control, we started crying out for God. We started saying, God, if you don't do it for me, I don't know how it's going to happen. God, I did things my way. I'm in a battle that I shouldn't even be in, and yet you saved me. You protected me. Man, I feel like going in for just a minute, because when I look back over my life about the times when I was in relationships and in jobs and in opportunities that I knew I had no business being in, I cried out. I cried out to God. I cried out when I was surrounded. I cried out when everyone else was bleeding out beside me. I cried out when I was losing my mind. I cried out when I was scared. I was scared straight, and I cried out to God. I know for some of you, you want me to move on, but I'm just telling you for just a minute that there are some of us in this room who recognize that our cries have power attached to them. Sometimes your breakthrough won't come until you open up your mouth. You've been waiting for somebody to help you. You've been waiting for someone to save you, and I hear God saying, if you would just cry out, if you would just finally admit that you don't know what you're doing, that you're lost and confused, then I can come in and step in and I can show you that you were protected even when you were in battle, that I had you covered even when you got in to the thing that is currently hurting.